Hi. So, I am typically pretty all over the place with my live stream. Sometimes I am a little bit better than others at keeping to a flow, but I am worried this one might be a little worse than usual because I don't have, usually I have things that I'm showing you, which kind of keeps me on track so I'm like focused on the thing, right? But this time I have one thing that I want to show you, but before that, I'm gonna do some disclaimers. But yeah, so I'm gonna show you those things, but overall, I'm just gonna kind of be talking today and rambling. So I'm hoping that I'm not too terrible, when it comes to being all over the place. But yeah, so basically I kind of wanted to go through like overall my passion in law, like how that kind of started and everything like that, and kind of walk you through like the more of the legal aspect timeline of my life. And like to a point, I know everybody is impacted by the law because it impacts everybody. It governs every fucking body, right? But on another level, I think every single person has a different experience with the law, and specific experiences that we can have as individuals can be what kind of trigger our passion or interest for understanding more of the field or uh, looking into cases and things of that nature. And so I think that can be different for everybody. And it always fascinates me to understand why different people end up in their legal journey whenever they do have some sort of hobby or career in as it relates to the law or legal commentary perhaps. And so yeah, I kind of wanted to go over that today, like where did that start for me and how does that impact me. And so we'll be talking about a lot of things. I'm not going to talk too much on my specific arrests because I have spoken on them previously, but I am just going to kind of talk about like the context of that being represented by Orleans public defenders, that being part of it. I'll be talking about like the family law, my family divorce. I'll be talking about a lot of things, as well as how my dad is Indigenous descent, so the way legal action impacts us as it relates to tribal um, law. And I'll also be kind of talking about my history on deaf law and disability law and neurodivergence as well. And in that regard, I'll also be talking about law offices that I've worked at and kind of my experiences and all of that. And so, yeah, um, I kind of, like call this like currently like I have like a description and a title for it that might change because I didn't really plan what I'm going to say for this, so I might end up changing the title and the description to reflect um, what I talk about if I don't really stay on point. I'm just going to change this to reflect what I do end up talking about and then maybe cover these topics another time if it feels right. But yeah, so what I planned on talking today, I called it standing up for yourself because I do want to talk about my own personal injury case in this situation, as well as how I believe part of self-care is learning how to, stand up for yourself in a way. Like, to a point, I disagree with the concept that you have to be socially acceptable to stand up for yourself because I feel like people use that to oppress a lot. Um, on another level, I do feel that if you want people to listen to you, you do have to eventually start processing and understand what can you say that's going to be socially acceptable to them to make a change potentially. And that's if or when you feel like still trying to continue a relationship or need to exist in a space for your life, right? To get by. But in general, I don't believe in some narrative that you need to um, try and force yourself to be around people who literally do not agree with your human rights. You know what I'm saying? I think that's unhealthy to do, in my opinion. But yeah. So basically, yeah, that's kind of how I got to the title part where it's currently labeled standing up for yourself in relation to self-care, for this to be a self-care Sunday series. And I also wanted to talk a little bit, like in my own story, I feel that it could be a reflection of how law is a weapon for self-protection or destruction, because we'll see it for self-protection in terms of some of the attorneys that I've worked for, how they protected others, and also in terms of how the law, how, I do have my own legal case, so perhaps, there are ways the law could end up protecting me, but we'll also look at how law is a tool for distraction and how it can be used as a shield for unethical things. And we'll kind of look at my family's Indigenous history as an example of that, as well as some deaf issues. We'll be kind of looking at all of that. And I don't know, I think that kind of covers everything I want to talk about today. I feel like I kind of got here because, I kind of say pretty often, like, sometimes that I don't know if people are treating me away or if I'm experiencing something in a situation. Sometimes it takes me a second to figure out, is this an issue because I'm deaf, because of my dad's Indigenous history, or because of neurodivergence? It takes me a second to process, like, what is the issue here, or is it a combination? And I say that a lot, and I feel like if you don't have those experiences, maybe you won't understand why I say that. And so I do want to just expand on that a little bit more before I get started. But so when you're deaf, we have our own culture. There is deaf culture. We have our own social norms, and we behave, and we are just completely different than hearing people. So sometimes when I have an issue with someone, it takes me a second. I'm like, is this like a deaf cultural issue versus a hearing cultural issue, right? And then sometimes it could be the similar thing with my dad being Indigenous descent. We have completely different ways that we move through life and that we handle things, And then sometimes the way neurodivergent people communicate and the way neurotypical people communicate is very different. And I feel like deaf people, Indigenous people, and neurodivergent people, we always have the burden of trying to conform our communication style to our oppressors, or to the mainstream, or to the neurotypicals, or to, you know what I'm saying? And we are always putting in all of this effort to try and communicate, articulate in a way that is socially acceptable to them, but they don't usually give us the same grace. Like, literally, we have foreigners on Indigenous land who do not understand or care to learn Native culture or how we communicate, and they act like we're the problem for wanting to preserve our own culture and social etiquette on our way of life in our own land, and they're not from here. You know what I'm saying? And there's nothing wrong with being an immigrant, but there is something wrong with committing genocide on Indigenous people and then trying to perpetuate that genocide on not only more Indigenous descendants, but also other Indigenous, I meant to say other immigrants, or other people who may be immigrants, or Indigenous to other spaces, I don't know. You know what the fuck my point is? Read my mind or some shit, damn. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's a struggle for me there, right? And so sometimes, like, I don't know, like, I have a problem figuring out, like, am I struggling to communicate because of my neurodivergence? Am I struggling to fit in because I'm used to my dad's side things being done a certain way? Am I used to, like, in my family, I come from a lot of deaf people. There's a lot of deaf people on both sides. So am I used to certain things being a certain way because we are just fucking deaf, so we're used to that shit? You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know sometimes when I go into a situation, like, what is the issue that is being had here? Because sometimes I feel like it feels like a mixture to me based on that history. And then it takes me time to process based on other activity in this scenario, what a pinpoint of what it could, the pinpoint of what actually happened when you stick to the facts of the events. And so, yeah, like, there I'm trying to speak on the difference, too, between how I feel in the moment and then needing to process based on the facts what it is. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling per usual, but I said this is going to happen, so. But linked in the description and the comments, not currently in the comments because it's live, but it might get me to the comments as needed if I timestamp. I might not even timestamp this one. I might. I usually do. I feel like I probably should, but I might not. I don't know. But if it gets me, they'll get me to the comments. But currently, I have linked content. It's not everything that I've ever done, and there is one link that I didn't do at all, and that's the Senekamaka Algonquian oral history link. That is produced by Mattapanai and Rappahannock, a tribal citizen. Her name is Olivia Costello. Not Olivia. I am so sorry. Raven Brightwater Costello. Olivia is with the Mattapanai Enrollment Office. My brain is on a different place today. Maybe I shouldn't have done this live stream. Whatever. I knew what was the right person in my head, and I still said the wrong name. And I used to get so mad because my mom would never just like say my name. She would never just say like Lexi, right? She's gonna go through all the kids' names first. She's gonna be Lindsay, Tori, Lexi. I'm like, just say Lexi, bitch. But now I'm just like her. I'm like, damn, fuck, shit, look at me. Anyway, but yeah, so the Senekamaka Algonquian Oral History, Raven Brightwater Costello produced that, and it's different tribal elders and chiefs and people of different nations in the Powhatan community, and that the captioner did not get that right, but it's Powhatan. So yeah, that's linked in there. But everything else that is linked in the description currently is content that I produced myself and research that I have done myself. And all of my sources I do link on YouTube. Some of the videos I talk about things that I've already shown sources for previously. So there are some videos where instead of linking the source, I link the other video I did, which would have the source on it. And I've done that in the past. I've decided in the future I'm not going to do that because I feel like anymore because I feel like it just makes it harder for you guys to actually get the source. So in the future I'm going to try to be more mindful and just put the fucking source all the time. But honestly, I've done like 600 videos and I'm not exaggerating, and I don't have the mental energy at this point in time in my life to go through and check and add those sources for those videos, but maybe in the future I will if I can ever mentally get there. But yeah, okay. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me, but I'm gonna roll my intro, and then we're just gonna I'm gonna just keep rambling. So yeah, thank you for joining me today, and I appreciate you. Hi, my name is Alexis, also known as Lexi or Deaf Child. I was born deaf, hard of hearing. I began doing business as Deaf Child 2013, marketing 2011, sales 2009. I've earned 50 plus certifications in marketing and sales. My Bachelor of Science from Loyola University, New Orleans, with a music industry studies major and a business administration minor. Deafness runs in my family genetically. Speech is not fully accessible to me. Anyway, I'm here to bitch about whatever the fuck is on my mind. So here we go. Visit my site at noladeafchild.com. Okay, so, basically, when it comes to law, my parents had like a contentious divorce. I was one when they got divorced, or when they separated, rather. I actually don't know the exact year that they got divorced, but I should look into that. But, they had a contentious divorce, and there was a custody battle, and things didn't go well. At the time in Mississippi and Alabama, they're basically more likely to side with the mother and keep the kids with the mother. So my mom was able to get more of custody and everything like that. But to be honest, I don't really think that my mom wanted to have us or wanted to have kids. I think we were kind of used as pawns to hurt my dad because he actually wanted us. He actually wanted to take care of us, but my dad did not. Wait, I didn't say that right, but my mom did not. My dad did not get us. My mom did. I don't think my mom wanted us, if that makes sense. And a lot of things, that my mom did that were extremely abusive, we didn't process until later on in life. And there were basically like, so my mom and my neighbor got into a huge fight because she was trying to call CPS on my mom. um, for a lot of things that my mom did. And so my mom would just isolate us from people who did recognize that she had a pattern. And for whatever reason, like police, for some reason, just like love my mom. Conservative men love my mom. Like my mom loves conservative men. I don't know, but like she fucking so she's just always been really good at weaponizing police and getting police to take her side, like no matter what, no matter what. It's crazy. Um, fucking so like I watched my mom physically assault my dad, and you know what I mean? Like my mom's always been extremely physically violent. And my dad, he's got issues too. They're just different. I think also the way that my dad treated his kids were different, but for different reasons. He had different experiences with us. Um, because like for example, like me, my brother, and my twin, we were used as like tools of manipulation in their divorce. Um, but then like my brother, as he got older, he was kind of like my mom was never around, so he was basically like parentified since he was literally like 11 years old. Like, you know what I mean? Heavily parentified. And so he was like one of the main people taking care of us. Because when it was like, my mom's turn to have us, right? Um, and my dad, though, he worked in a shop on the property. So it's like, yeah, we were just up in the house while he was at the shop working, but it was next door. It was like, you know what I mean? There's house, shop. If I go backyard, just like we just go over there. I spend half the time in the shop. Like I was raised in the shop. You know what I mean? Like my dad would just kind of be watching us while he worked. Like he didn't need to keep eye on us all the fucking time because we were good kids. You know what I mean? Like we just go out there if we need anything. Um. So you know what I mean? But yeah, fucking my mom though, she's just like obviously to a point I understand the working part because so that part's not where I'm like I'm not judging the fact that she was working. I'm just saying because of work, she was not able to spend that amount of time with us, right? So work took up a good amount of time as it should, as it's supposed to. No judgment. Would never criticize her working mother. That's not what I'm judging her for. What I'm judging her for is the fact that my mom had money for a boob job. My mom had money to go make sure she went on vacations every year, made sure she could go to the beach every year, and things of that nature. But she couldn't take us to the dentist. You know what I mean? Like, make it make sense. So yeah, she would sometimes, but not regularly. Like it had to get to a point before it would happen. Um, and so there are just like issues where it's like it's not normal. I don't know. And then when my mom was off of work, she would still not be coming home. Like if she was coming home, it wasn't for her to cook and take care of us. It was we better have had dinner on the table for her. We kept the house clean for her. And to a point, I agree that kids need chores or whatever and responsibility, blah, 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 blah. I'm not judging that. But there's another level of which children should not be your caretaker. I don't give a fuck. You're supposed to take care of kids. And so with my mom though, like I was fixing her gimlets and alcoholic beverages and screwdrivers from a very young age. We were her bartenders. And that's also how I became an alcoholic. I think. I don't know. I can't just blame all my problems on my parents, and I don't. But I do think that a lot of my problems come from learned behavior and repeated cycles of patterns of behavior from my parents. And it's my responsibility to be my own person and to make different choices, But when I look back on the choices I make, I process a lot of the things that were normalized to me came from what I was around. You know what I'm saying? So when I joke about, oh, it's my fucking parents' fault, I don't fucking just blame my parents for what I decide to do, but yeah. And so, I don't know that, but the impact of that divorce case heavily impacted me, and I kind of want to see if I can find some legal documentation on that, and then go into that more if I can one day. I'm gonna hold off on that conversation for now though. But so family law, and so then moving on later in life, um, before I was ready to admit that I was an alcoholic, I got a DUI because I'm irresponsible and was a selfish fuck. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe that I was, like, I don't believe I was some fucking terrible, evil, malicious piece of shit, but I don't believe I was a good person, if that makes sense. If I wasn't on a good path, I wasn't making good choices, I was really self absorbed. And it wasn't that I was doing things with bad intent, but intention isn't the same as impact, and I wasn't understanding my impact with a lot of my actions, you know? And I would think, oh, well, I have good intent, so then it's fine that I'm learning. But to a point, nowadays, it's like, yeah, I know if, no matter what, when you're in your learning journey, there's going to be consequences of learning. But on another level, it's like, I don't think you can use the fact that you're on a learning journey and that you have good intention to just disregard what your impact is, right? So, and I think that right there was something that was kind of taught to me on my mom's side. Like, my mom is very much like she doesn't understand what's wrong with cultural appropriation of African hairstyles, for example, or she doesn't understand what's wrong with cultural appropriation of like de los Muertos and the Katrina dolls and things of that nature. She doesn't understand what's wrong with cultural appropriation of regalia. Like, my mom, she was like, oh, but we want to appreciate the culture. It's not appropriation. It's not harm. It's not exploitation. We appreciate. It's showing appreciation. I'm like, mom, it doesn't matter if that's your intent. This is the impact. It's racism. It's assuming that you are entitled to a culture because of colonialism, a culture which should be safe kept, that comes from indigenous roots. You know what I'm saying? In certain situations, for example. Um, and so, like, and then when you try to explain it to her, she plays victim. She was like, well, I just won't participate in learning about other cultures then. And I'm like, oh, Lord, have mercy. You know, so it's just, like, there's a certain level of, I don't know, of issues that my mom has. And I don't really even know how the fuck I got on that ramble. I apologize. But my mom does that with everything. Um, yeah, you can't hold her accountable for nothing. And I think that, you know what? Now I know how I'm here. Like, I think that the fact that I've always been like gaslit by my mom my entire life, and like always had to hold my ground with her my entire life, kind of got me onto my own sense of justice outside of like thinking of the who was able to control me, but more of my own path. You know what I'm saying? Because for example, like my mom thought like if like if my mom, for example, picked us up from my grandmother's house when I was like really little, I would cry because I would want to go back to my grandmother's house, and I think that's a normal thing for a kid to do. I really do. I think it's normal for a kid to want to spend time with their grandparents, and so my mom though she wouldn't like that I was crying, so she would kick me out of the car. Like, doesn't matter. She would just pull over on the side of the fucking road on the highway and kick me out and drive off. And this is a regular occurrence. Like, and I'm just giving you an example of one time, but this actually happened, and this happened multiple times. And I was very young, like 4 or 5, very young. I remember this happening. And this is in Meridian, Mississippi. And so my mom would just drive off, and my twins, she will tell me that, and she would be begging my mom to come back, go get me. And sometimes my mom would come back and get me, and I would wait long enough, she'll come back. But sometimes it would be starting to get dark, or it'd already be dark, and I didn't think she would be coming back, so I would just walk. Sometimes I would, depending on where I was, I might be close enough to my grandmother's to walk back there, or I'd find somewhere to walk to where I could call my grandmother. She's dead now, but I used to have her phone number memorized, so I would just need to get to a phone, to borrow someone's phone to call my grandmother to come get me. Um, and I mean, because my dad, he lived over an hour away, so it would be quicker to get my grandmother to me. So, yeah, like, there was these things in my life, like, those events aren't normal. Like, that's, like, my mom would tell us all the time she wanted us dead. She wishes we were dead. All the time. Um, it stopped after she, did another thing, but you know what? That's how we were raised. Um, and so it's like that's what those are situations that lead me to believe like she never wanted us. And when you look at the fact so that there was a divorce case in my family and that there was a custody fight. My dad was fighting for custody of us the whole time, and my mom would treat us like that, but wouldn't give us to my dad. And then she would dump us on my dad one day when she decided she wanted to move in with her boyfriend and go to another state, right? So that's what she did. But I don't know. Like, my mom has always centered her whole life around spending more time with other men than her children. And she's only ever given a fuck about her children to the extent of how does it look in a picture, and she just wants to party. She's always ever partied. Like, my mom has always drank and drive, and I didn't understand how wrong that was until after I got arrested for my own DUI. And it wasn't because like I didn't care about the atrocities of drinking and driving. It's because of how I was raised. You know what I'm saying? And so I did, like, I understand how sometimes you look at someone, you're like, how are you a dumbass? And you don't fucking know any better. But being raised the way I was, I understand that because I'm a dumbass who doesn't fucking know better about that shit because of the way I was raised. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't. Yeah. There are certain things that's like I feel very smart about, so I don't just think I'm a dumbass person, right? Because there are certain things that I know I'm an intelligent person about, but there are certain things where I'm like, damn, what a fucking dumbass! Like, wow, like, particularly nowadays though, like this is how I learned because I would never do these things anymore, and a lot of things I'm able to look at my family now and not just default to that behavior, but to look at it and say, wow, what the fuck, versus previous me would be in default of repeating my family behavior. But yeah. So, my DUI actually was a wake-up call in terms of legal action in my life. It didn't I wasn't at that point in my life ready to admit I was an alcoholic, but it did make me change the way I acted with drinking. It did make me a more responsible drinker, I believe. Which sounds fucked up. I'm just very grateful no one got hurt. I got lucky. But yeah, so I wasn't ready to admit that I was an alcoholic. Like, I was back when I decided to quit in 2019. Towards the end of 2019, mid to end 2019, like summer to fall, I was really realizing that I did have a problem with alcohol, but it wasn't until my accident that I was like, I'm an alcoholic, I have to quit. But yeah. So, getting arrested, that, for the DUI, that did impact me. I was arrested a couple other times too. Disturbing the pieces is what I officially got on my record, I believe, for both of those situations. One of them was for an altercation. The other one was for egging the Leon Cannizzaro's house. But we're here now. And so, wow, the caption, I got that way wrong. I said D-A and then C-A. Shit, I don't know how to spell that. N-N-A-Z-Z-A-R-O or something like that. I don't know. But if you Google it, that'll get you there, I think. But, yeah, fucking. So that was a situation. But when I got arrested for the fight, I had a public defender take my case. And so whenever I was spending time in jail from that situation, I became very aware of seeing for myself certain statistics and the realities of that. Um, and so that's from there I ended up fundraising. Like a lot of my events, I was fundraising for Orleans public defenders whenever I was doing events. And I was doing a lot of research and publication on mass incarceration and how I believed mass incarceration tied um, not only to police brutality but also to ICE and all of that. And so that was kind of like a wake up call for me with a lot of the social issues that we have as it relates to income disparity, as it relates to inequality, as it relates to discrimination. Um, to a point, I've always been impacted by certain aspects of that through my dad's side and my dad's family history and seeing what my dad has gone through and my dad's family. Um, and how that family history also impacted me through intergenerational trauma and then through what are the ramifications of my own life right now based on that history too. Um, and so, but I think it was seeing how it impacted other community in real life for me outside of my family that really opened my eyes to how bad the situation was, and I believe it's even worse now. I believe it's escalating exponentially. But yeah, so and then when it relates to my dad's history with the tribal history and the entire existence of this quote unquote nation and the legal system that we rely on for what access we do have, that's all based on the people who claim to form this government negating their treaties, lying, and taking away land and killing people and genocide and human trafficking. It's not based on ethics. It's not based on morality, you know? And so that's where when I talk about how law could be self-protection or self-destruction, that's where that comes into play. So I have a lot of history with negative history of the law, not seeing the law as something that is good for people too. I've seen it in both ways, right? And I think there is a balance. And that balance for me is my history and my dad's side on indigenous tribal teachings. I think that's what's missing. Because with the way that we are today, the justice system, it's supposed to be about rehabilitation, but it's not. It's about profit. And it's literally modern day. I mean, there's a lot of forms of modern day slavery, but I really believe mass incarceration is one of them. And yeah. So from there, I kind of feel like with my dad's history as well, fighting for tribal sovereignty, I feel like a lot of people, they don't understand that the purpose of what law there is in life isn't supposed to be to be authoritarian. It's not supposed to force people into concepts outside of their consent. In a lot of indigenous communities, because we are not a monolith. But overall, from what I've learned in the different communities I've been a part of, and from my own history, is a lot of people have what's the lyrics from what's the fucking song? Sorry. Song of Survival by Red Eagle. He says teachings over law. And that's what a lot of indigenous people practice, teachings over law in some form or another. So in my community, at every stage in your life, in our ways, we have mentorship for the younger generation. And it's all about helping the younger generation be successful. And what it takes, we do have our own version of policing. I don't really like to call it policing because it's not the same, but in terms of, we do have a form of regulation for our behavior and for what we accept in our communities, and that comes down, it's all regulated and governed by our tribes, our tribal governments, and we have different tribal uh, everybody has different ways that they do that, you know, different tribal councils, different chief systems, things of that nature. Some have one or the other, some have both. So yeah, fucking I think that in this current government, like, you get locked up for stupid shit, right? But in our ways, we're more about teaching you to be better, and what it takes to actually get excluded from our community and our society. Like, but it's really funny too, because in the United States justice system, if you're a Brock Turner situation, I said BROCKTURNER, you're just gonna get like 6 months and then you're gonna be fine because everybody's worried about your future, right? But in my community, that would get you exiled for good. Like, you're not coming back. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we police in different ways, but at the same time, where you guys are like, oh, we're gonna lock you up for drugs, we would try to rehabilitate you. We would try to get you into ceremony, help you get clean. Like, we just handle things differently. You know what I mean? Like, there's accountability. We have truth and reconciliation. We do hold we have accountability, but we don't believe in this vindictive aspects in a lot of cases, where we enforce regulation for the safety of community comes down to, are you endangering others? It's not about some petty bullshit. But in the Western world, a lot of people do use law for pettiness. They don't use the law for, they use law for gain. They don't use it for justice, And I think a lot of the way that the law has been built has been controlled from a system of gain. And so that is what is taught to people. And because that's what the quote-unquote justice system is based off of, even when people are going into the justice system with a good heart, they don't have the power as individuals to change the collective organization that is running exactly the way it was built to run. But yeah. And then how I got into working for law offices. So I was basically, after I was working as a server, and whenever I was inebriated, and I basically really fucked up my face, and the restaurant I was working for basically told me that I couldn't come back in because they didn't want their customers to look at me. Straight up, that's exactly what they told me in writing, in text, yeah. So they literally told me they didn't want me to come back in because they didn't want their customers to look at me. And so I lost my job, and I ended up job hunting again. And it only took about a month or so for my face to heal. Well, it took a few months for my face to heal up, but within, towards the end of the month, of that same month of it happening, I could wear enough makeup to get it covered up mostly. And so, yeah, I ended up getting another job eventually. First I was working as a server at another place, but that location, they shut down. It's not there no more, and it's another place now, but they just shut down on us. And so after that, I ended up getting hired at another coffee shop, and that coffee shop shut down. And then it's like, what the fuck, man? Every time I work somewhere. So then I ended up getting hired by a law office, and at that point, I had done a lot of work with mass incarceration as it related to my research on mass incarceration. I'd also taken a lot of classes on legal issues in the music industry. I took two different legal specific classes called Legal Issues in the Music Industry 1 and 2. And then I also took an introduction to legal issues in the music industry class, which was separate from that. And then I took a fourth class on introduction to business law. So I took 4 different legal classes in college. And then I also took fucking no, that was it. And then I also so I did my mass incarceration research. Am I speaking right? Read my mind. I don't know. I did my mass incarceration research, and then I raised money for Orleans public defenders. I also wrote from my college history about legal issues in the music industry. I wrote a blog on that, and I also wrote about why people in the music industry should hire attorneys whenever they're going into partnership, particularly people who are bandmates. And so that history is what got me into this job, along with my experience in marketing at that point is what got me a job, my first job at a law office. And so and I had worked in other business offices before, but I don't mind going back. Like, a lot of people, when I talk about, being in and out of the service industry, they act like that invalidates my experience in your typical 8 to 5, 9 to 5 jobs or whatever. And I don't understand why, because you make a lot more money in the service industry in a lot of cases. But anyway, fucking my passion. But I want to work with where my passion is, And so the service industry is quick money, but when I get a job at the right place, I feel like that's long-term sustainable for me with where my heart is, But I say a lot. That's my bad. What if you don't know? You don't know shit. I don't know. My bad. What the fuck is wrong with me? So, when I worked at that law office, that first office, when I first started, I had my own personal injury case. And when I was at the law office, I still experience a lot of pain, from this situation to this day. When I first started at the law office, the first office I worked at, it had just happened. And one of the attorneys that I worked for took one look at my finger. She was asking me about what happened, and I was telling her, and no, she had me document all that real quick, and she started a legal case on that. Because of different situations, even though the case started about 5 years ago, it is still ongoing. So I'm not going to speak much on the case itself until after that legal action is resolved, but I am just going to speak on the actual injury itself and the how that case is related to my journey in the legal field. So before I continue the story, I'm going to show you the injury. But before I show you the injury, I'm going to just kind of give some disclaimers on how I do believe I'm following YouTube guidelines. So I was looking into it online, and from a quick Google result, I basically found that you could show these types of injuries for a live stream if it was for the purpose of education, for the purpose of documentation, as long as you were not trying to shock anybody, or anything of that nature, as long as you're not trying to convince anybody to do anything violent, which I'm totally not. And so that's why I believe it is okay for me to share this information, I'm hoping. But if this video gets taken down, that's why. But I'm hoping that it won't, and that it is okay legally to kind of show you because the reason I feel called to show you the actual visual here is so you understand the gravity, um, where I was literally felt like I was hanging on by a thread, or part of me was, I want you to understand the gravity of my connection to the legal field as it relates, particularly in this situation, the personal injury aspect, and why I think that this helps me understand what clients of these cases are going through and how that makes me someone who's better able to target them. That's why I think I do a great fucking job. Because I wrote a personal injury ebook. I know some marketing agencies that use AI to write their legal commentary and legal content. I never have. I've always written my shit from the heart. And I think doing that helps people who have those experiences connect with it more. Because when it doesn't have that, when you don't have someone who can speak to the pain points of people who have been through it, then all you're getting is a sales pitch. Like, yeah, the sales pitch might have a lot of information, but if you're not able to hit their pain points, if you're only throwing information at them without speaking to what they're going through, they might not receive it in the moment. And I think that whenever you are able to word things in a way where people who have been through what you are targeting them for are able to identify with, you can have better results than if you automate data and regurgitate that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. So that's also why I feel like I want to show you guys what I went through for informational purposes and documentary purposes. But first, before I do, because I really don't think it's that bad, but part of it is a little gory, so I do just want to, throw some disclaimers like trigger warning and all of that, like if seeing something gory would bother you, just if you're watching this live, because I know a couple of y'all are, I would click away for like 30 minutes and then come back, or just don't watch the rest of this stream until like tomorrow, and I actually will timestamp it, and that way you can skip this part. But yeah, so for the violent or graphic content policies that YouTube has that I am trying to follow though, they're saying that violent or gory content intended to shock or disgust viewers or content encouraging others to commit violent acts are not allowed on YouTube. I have no intention to shock anybody. I've tried to be clear on what you're going to see and everything like that so that you are not shocked. I want to show this to you for informational and documentary purposes. I understand if anybody does find it disgusting, but that is not my intent. My intent is just to kind of show you the gravity of how I was impacted, to look at this from a legal standard, on a personal injury frame. And yeah, I don't want anybody to ever do this to others or ever have this done to you. I have no intention to encourage anybody to be violent at all here, So, yeah, that's all important for me to say. So, it does say here, don't show these situations with the intent to shock or disgust viewers, and that I most definitely am not doing. Because I don't want anybody to look at this at all if this is something that would trigger you. That's why I'm going to be putting the timestamp so people can avoid this material if it's not something you want to see. And it's just for people who would want to understand this part of my journey. And for other people who are in the legal field to process how I was impacted as it relates to them, I think it could help people who are in the legal industry better target their market for those in personal injury law. And I think it could just help anybody kind of understand different aspects as well in which maybe they would want to take legal action for themselves. And so, yeah, So YouTube's community guidelines, though, they do say here sometimes content that would utter violate our community guidelines may stay on YouTube when it has educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic context. In these cases, the content gets an EDSA exception. I am hoping that, as I've discussed, that it kind of does qualify or would qualify for educational and documentary context as it relates to my legal journey. And I believe it does qualify. I looked into the qualifications that were posted, and I think it does fit. So that is why I did choose to go ahead and continue with this. So here it says we may allow kinds of violent or graphic content in some cases in educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic content. It's not a pass to upload content meant to shock or disgust or encourage others to commit violent acts. And they may not make these exceptions for certain kinds of content. So yeah. For educational content containing this context must appear in the images or audio of the video itself. Providing it in the title or description is insufficient. I am hoping that this aspect of my communication, where I've been kind of rambling for a minute about why I feel the need to show this, can qualify for the context of what I am showing. I also want to note here, it's bringing up people who are under 18. I do have all of my content set not for kids. So I'm hoping that, should take care of that as well. I do not intend for any children to look at this or anything of that nature. And to be honest, it is an injury, but I don't think it's that bad, but it is, an injury. So I just want to provide it is pretty bad. It impacted me greatly, but I don't think the visual of it is that graphic, is what I mean by bad, if that makes sense. But yeah, the impact has been long term. The pain when it happened, particularly, I can't even begin to describe how much pain I was in. And the pain that it still caused me today has been a lot. But, so when I say it wasn't that bad, I know it was actually pretty bad, but I don't think it looked, it's so gory that it might be like, some terrible thing to see that you can't ever unsee, it's not pleasant to look at, but I don't think it's going to be traumatizing by any means, is what I meant to say. But yeah, so they are also discussing about age restriction content and all of that. But again, I just want to note, I don't have any of my content set for kids. It's in fact set not for kids. So yeah, it does say that they may reply to age restriction, and I totally understand. That's fine by me. I looked into how YouTube evaluates educational, documentary, scientific, and artistic content. It does say here, though, that adding the context doesn't guarantee that I will get an exception, but I am hoping that it does qualify. But it says, how do you get it? But first, you're going to check to see if there's a community guideline violation. If there is a violation in relation to the pictures I'm going to show y'all next, then we're going to review if that's enough context in the content to make an exception. So then they're going to decide if what I discussed here is enough of a context. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to find out if it's not, what would have made it so, and they review what context is present and where the context is. Here it says what context to add to our content. So, the type of context that you must include to get an exception depends on what's in the content. They make most exceptions when the content has one or more of the following. 1. basic facts about what's happening in the content. Identify who's in the content. It's me. Describe what the content shows. It's going to show 8 stitches on a laceration on my middle finger. Where it takes place, it took place at one of my former homes. The pictures that you see, some of them are from urgent care where I was stitched up at. Some of them are from a previous home, and I think one of them might be at work. And then I also have pictures of how it healed today in this house. And explain why it's present. I already have explained a lot of the context for it at the beginning of this live stream and throughout, but just a recap there, we've been discussing my journey in the legal field, and so it's present here to show you guys my own personal injury case and how that impacted me in my career that I've had in the law, and to show you guys where my passion in terms of how I look at the law, part of that, where that comes from. It's from situations like this, you know? So yeah. Number 2, where it comes to condemnation, opposing views or satire, communicate that our content condemns certain claims, including opposing views or satirical. This is not satirical content, but I do condemn injuring anybody to this type of form. Discouragement of dangerous behavior. Tell viewers not to imitate what's in this video. I hope this does not happen to anybody, and I hope nobody ever does this to anybody. So yeah, please don't do that. I'm just going to show you guys how I was injured. But yeah. So yeah. And so it says here I can add this context to the video or to the audio, to the title, and to the description. So yeah, it may not make exceptions if it's in the comments, the descriptions, the channel descriptions, pinned comments, or other surfaces, because it's not always visible. For content that risks the most harm, they require context in the video or audio. So yeah. I don't think that any of this applies where it says content that may not get an exception. I don't think that any of what's in that list will apply to my situation. So this covers my disclaimer here, and now I'm going to move on from that disclaimer and trigger warning scenario. We're going to move on to actually looking at the visuals here. The first 2 to 3 are kind of the quote-unquote worst to look at. In comparison, the others really aren't that gruesome or bad. They're not pleasant to see, but they're not, I don't think it'll traumatize you or anything like that. It's just not pleasant to look at. But it does show you how much pain I was in. And so I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I don't want it to be the majority of this. My intention is not to trigger anybody, it's not to discuss anybody, it's not to surprise anybody or anything like that. So if you are triggered by injuries, please skip the following section and then come back another time. So yeah, and I'm going to timestamp this. So I'm actually going to show it now. I was injured. I had 8 stitches put into my middle finger. And the injury was caused by somebody else. There is legal action taking place surrounding those events, so I'm not going to speak too much on that at this time. But this is the injury. It caused me a lot of pain in my hand. I believe it was infected in part of the healing journey. It hurt a lot. I couldn't sleep for weeks because of how much pain I was in. And this is how my finger looked. Just like this, when I started at the very first law firm I worked at. But I did not let that stop my productivity. I was typing with my middle finger in the air. I was over here and they were like, you know, like I did everything I could to keep working. I did not let that hinder my productivity. But me trying not to let that hinder my productivity, I was working through pain. Just because I was able to work doesn't mean it was healthy for me. Um, and I worked through a lot of pain. I was in intense pain. And it took a long time to heal up. And I basically, I was really worried that I would be completely disfigured. I believe I do have nerve damage permanently. My hand does not work the same, and I rely on my hand for my communication and American Sign Language. I rely on hand for everything I do at work. I rely on my hand to make music, and my hand has never worked the same since this happened to me. And so one of the attorneys that I worked at from that first law office, that first attorney, he got sanctioned by the bar, and a bunch of things happened. That scenario kind of, imploded. Well, the attorney that took my case, she ended up starting her own law firm, and I ended up working with her after that scenario as well. And I had worked with her through that at that law office as well. But yeah, like, there's a lot of scar tissue buildup under my finger, and it really impacted my ability to do anything. And even today, I have a lot of pain, and I'm able to make use of the finger. Like previously, I wasn't even able to use it. It hurt so fucking much. I couldn't use it for a long time. And the scar tissue has gone down through, I believe, massaging helped me with that. But yeah, that is that is my personal injury journey as it relates to beginning my work in the legal field. So this experience is why I applied to work for a personal injury attorney. These things happening to me is why I wanted to work at a personal injury attorney, and why I wanted to be somewhere where I thought we would be helping people and providing people with the type of help that I had wished I'd had for myself in other situations as well before, And so this is my hand today. I still have a lot of scarring, particularly on the side of my finger. There's a bit of scar tissue there, but the scar tissue in the main pad of my finger has gone down, but I still believe I have a lot of nerve damage. And you can't really, it's hard to see. I wonder if I could zoom in. That didn't work. I don't know if it's really working, if I can zoom in, but you can kind of see maybe a faint outline of where the laceration and stitches occurred on my middle finger as well still. And if you feel my fingers, you can feel how, and you can see and feel in person how my middle fingers are different now. Flipping you guys off. But I was gonna try and show you guys here, but I don't even know if you can see it. But versus this finger's fine. This is the one that's damaged. I don't know if you can see it, but well, that's unfortunate for me. Well, I accidentally clicked away. My bad, y'all. Bring that back up. Okay, so I was trying to show you my finger, and you can really see, up front it's harder to get a picture of it with the scarring, but you can kind of see that outline. But on the side, you can see even more of it, of how it was there. And here's a video I have here. And so I was trying to get it to focus, but it wasn't focusing. But I was trying to see, there it is, right there, you can see the scar tissue kind of build up on my finger still. And you can see the scar, how that scar is today. And it travels like it's not a perfect circle. It goes like in this way, but it's like jagged. You know, it's not a clean cut scar, but you can see how the scar traveled around my around my finger, I believe. So, and I do believe I almost did have my finger basically cut off of me. Basically, in other words, you know, trying to show you guys. Ooh, right there, the light had really hit the scar, and you could really see it for a second there. But yeah, so, and that's kind of it right there when it comes to looking at the visual representation of this. So there's nothing else to be concerned about there with that trigger warning. So we are moving on from that now. Sorry for anybody that was triggered by that, but hopefully it wasn't too bad to see. But that journey is, you know, what kind of like also like even more kind of made me want to understand the legal field. So my arrest, you know, had this impact in my head where, well, my DUI, I believe that I really should have gotten arrested for that. Like, I'm glad I got arrested for that. Like, deserve that. Yes. The other two arrests, I do not believe are valid arrests. I believe those are people weaponizing police against me. And those are people in power. And those are people with colonial white supremacist backgrounds weaponizing police on indigenous descendants. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't believe that those are valid because this one chick, she literally came in my house, like physically assaulting me. All I was doing was trying to get her out my damn house. And then she wants to leave and play fucking victim? Are you fucking kidding me? I was pissed. And then this Leon Cannizzaro, if you Google him, he is known for issuing fake subpoenas. Okay? Like, you know what? Since I made that claim, let me pull that up. I made that claim, so now let me fucking pull up the goddamn source because that's a hefty ass claim to make without a fucking source now, isn't it? Hold on. Let me see if I can find you a source. So just a quick little Google search here. Leon Cannizzaro, fake subpoena. We'll show you here. Let's look at this one. You'll see different ones. But the Lynn sues District Attorney Leon Cannizzaro to force him to turn over fake subpoenas. He was ordered to pay more than $50,000 for arbitrary and capricious refusal to hand over subpoena records. Ruling means Cannizzaro is personally responsible for the penalties. This was 2020. One of my arrests was for egging his house. But the reason the police were called and I got arrested for egging his house, he was trying to claim that my person was assaulting me. This man has never laid a hand on me in my life. He was being fucking racist, in my opinion, because my person, he is Pakistan, half Cuban, half Pakistani descent. All right, don't fuck with me. He got a big ass beard, dark skin, black hair. All right, so I believe he was just being fucking racist. So we were not being quiet, but we were not being that loud either. We were just fucking coming out of the Uber, talking shit because we had just gone to a show. It was like 5 a.m. and I was working that show. It was for one of my clients. And we were on our way up. We lived next door to him. He actually tore down our old house and he lives there now actually. But so we used to live next door to him, but we lived on the top floor. And we would upstairs outside to get into our house. But he used to watch TV outside because he had this like cover thing, and he would watch TV out there, and he was being loud as fuck. That TV was loud as hell, actually. Like, you could hear the TV from inside our house was how loud he was. Okay? Like, don't get me started. So we were just talking, but he was mad that he could hear us at all. The fact that we were outside at all, speaking at all. And so he starts telling us that we need to be quiet and blah, 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 blah. We weren't even fucking being rambunctious. We were literally laughing and talking shit as we got out of the Uber and went up inside our house, because we were just going to go inside the house. We were getting ready to go to sleep because we had been out. And he called the police straight up. We were basically like, fuck you, we're going inside. And he called the police and was claiming that my person was trying to put hands on me. And I was like, what the fuck? He's never touched me in his life. And Leon Cannizzaro kept saying, I'm the DA, I'm the DA, I'm the DA. And I was like, he's never fucking touched me. And the police were trying to put my person in the cop car. So I went inside. I was drunk as hell, man. And I went inside, and I didn't know what the fuck to do. So I was like, you know what? They can take me instead. So we had eggs. So I went inside my house. And while the police are there, while they're like trying to arrest Shaw without proof, mind you, of anything, and I'm not filing a complaint, it's the DA. I start egging his house. I just start throwing the eggs at his house. I'm like, fuck you, you suck ass, fuck you. And he calls the police, and he's like, no, get her. I'm the DA. Arrest her. And I got arrested for disturbing the peace, and I really do not give a fuck. Fuck Leon Cannizzaro. Suck my fucking dick. Fuck you. Anyway, so that's my experience with the law. That DUI, I deserved it. I was a piece of shit for that. I'm glad I got that DUI. That really helped me set me straight. I needed that. The 2 disturbing the pieces on my record, I believe, are fucking bullshit. All right. The other judge, for the other situation against me, that judge, the fuck was his name? Hold on. I forgot that judge's name. I'm blanking on it. Holy fuck. I'm gonna have to go through my records and figure out what that guy's name was. Because that judge, I remember the judge had been in some drama too. Okay, I'm gonna have to come back to you guys on that judge. Why the fuck am I forgetting that judge's name? Oh my god. I don't believe it's any of the current judges. Now the fact that I can't come up with his name is bothering me. But whatever. I'm sorry, guys. I wish my memory was better. I wish that, you know, I've read that trauma can impact your memory. I wish that wasn't the case. Why the fuck can I remember his name? Damn, damn, there's a lot of judges that have had scandal, but none of those were my judge. God damn it. Okay, hold on. Give me like 5 more searches and then I'm gonna move this bitch along. That's not right. Why the fuck can I find... I could have sworn. Now, you know what? Now this shit is really bothering me. Can you find like a list of New Orleans judges? I don't think he's a current New Orleans judge anymore. Okay, I'm spending way too much time on this, but at the back, it's just bothering me so much. I could have sworn his name had a Z in it too, man. No, it's definitely not a current one. Oh. There's a different list. Is it this guy? No, I don't think it's that guy. Nah, that's totally not him. Okay, I think the case happened in 2017. Wait a minute. This one is hidden by a paywall, so I am going through the source code to see if I can find. Aha! Yes. Oh fuck! Hell yeah! I totally found it. I knew it had a Z. That's the dude. That's the dude. Oh shit! He's coming back. Yeah, I found it. Okay, hold on. Let me find a controversy. Okay. I don't. I have not looked into the case, so I can't primarily summarize this. I can't properly summarize this for you. Okay. I figured it out. So, in the basically in the case where I ended up getting a disturbing the peace charge, but it was in the case where I was assaulted, I had a public defender represent me. I was just listening to whatever the fuck the public defender told me to say or do. I wanted to fight the situation in court and whatever, but she advised me that it would be better to just get out of the system quicker because they could guarantee a specific result that way versus if we went to trial, she couldn't guarantee what the result would be, but this way there would be more control over the situation. Um, and so I just kind of took my public defender's advice. And I believe her name, if I'm not mistaken, was like Jen Fennell or something like that. Um, but Judge Franz Zibilich is the guy that presided over my case, and I just feel like my case wasn't one where I was heard. Like I didn't think that my voice mattered at all in that case. Not my point of view did not. They didn't care about me. Like what did I think happened? I was the one with injuries. She did not have injuries from the altercation. They didn't listen to me because I wasn't the first one that called the police. That was literally it, in my opinion. I think that and the fact that she has completely white ancestry. I think that also is a matter. And her parents, they are much richer than mine, and they have more of an influence in this city than mine. Um, so, yeah, things like that. I really do think that those aspects came into place with my case. So, and in my case, I had weed in my house, and that's another reason I didn't call the police. And I also, I'm a fucking trailer park bitch. Like, yeah, I'm fucking used to, like, if you start a physical altercation, I'm not used to you being a little fucking pussy and going to fucking call the police, bitch. If you want to fight me, don't fucking start a fight with me and then go call the police. If you want to fight me, you come fucking fight me, bitch. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to call the police or to take legal action when serious physical assault has occurred to where you are damaging somebody's ability to live or something. But if you want to throw some fucking punches and you get punched back and then you want to call the police and act like you're the victim when you're the one who started punching me and you're fucking 4 times my size, it's like, fuck you. Because, no, I'm serious. I'm not even, the lady that hit me was between 200 and 300 pounds, and I was about 80 pounds when this event occurred. I was between 80 and 100. I was underweight back in 2017. I was underweight. And, yeah, like, she was literally 3 or 4 times my size. punching the fuck out of me. I had bruises. And they just wanted to get my case out. They didn't care about, you know what I mean? Like what the actual situation was. They were just doing their court thing to get it over with. And so my public defender was like, the quickest way is to just plead guilty to disturbing the peace. And I was like, are you kidding me? And she was like, well, it's better for it to get dropped guaranteed to disturbing the peace than you take a risk. And because the lady was trying to say that they were trying to put aggravated assault and simple battery charges on me because she came in my house. She wouldn't leave. She was punching me, physically punching me and shoving me in my kitchen. I had bong cleaner on my counter by my sink. I picked it up. I threw it at her. It hit her in this vicinity. If any did splash on her face, I understand if that occurred, but it's not like I just dumped it in her eyes or some shit. You know what I mean? And it's a non-abrasive liquid, so it's not like it's not supposed to be abrasive, because I have very sensitive skin, so I don't like abrasive cleaning products if I can help it. But yeah, but she was actually telling people, she straight up was telling people that I threw battery acid on her. I was like, where the fuck would I have gotten battery acid from? No, your face just always looked like that. And in the court records, like in court, they were trying to claim, well, her face is red. And I said, look at her Facebook profile. Look at her pictures. Her face always looks like that. That's just her face. Like, oh my God, like, you know what I mean? But basically, he has been known to not step down, if I'm understanding correctly. The judge that had my case actually worked with the district attorney Leon Cannizzaro. They were working together at the same time. And this was also in context of District Leon Cannizzaro already hated me. And he was also, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that my case was at the same time where he was district attorney, after he had already used the police against me. You know what I mean? So that's why my case went the way it did. I believe it was because the people in charge hated me. It wasn't like, the most that I could have done better would have been to be compliant to the oppressors. It wasn't about whether or not I'm a good person. It wasn't about whether or not I'm a danger to society. It was about compliance to oppression, in my opinion. That DUI case against me, that was about me being a piece of shit, me needing to rehabilitate, me needing to be better. That was an actual valid case on me. But these other ones, those were political, in my opinion. But yeah. So, but even back in the day, back in 2007, back in 2013, back in the day, Franz Zibilich was, being questioned about his integrity as it relates to should he be overseeing cases he may have a conflict of interest on, and yeah, even the NAACP was investigating him at one point. And so that's another thing. And then he was also mentioned in this New Orleans article, no.com article, about incumbent New Orleans judges draw fire in the challenge for a criminal, whatever the fuck it's called, court representation when you're the judge or whatever. I don't know. So obviously I'm not paying for that shit, but I did right click. I'm viewing the page source for this document, and if you look up Franz Zibilich, I don't think I'm saying his name right, but this was the judge in my case. Basically it says, Angel Harris is challenging Judge Franz Zibilich for the Section L seat of Orleans Parish Criminal District Court. I don't know what year this is from, but maybe I can find out in a minute. It says, in an environment where incumbents rarely even face a challenge, that usual safe haven has disappeared in 2020 Oh, okay, this is for 2020. For two judges, Lori White and Franz Zibilich. Both have drawn competition on the November 3rd ballot, even though 3 seats are open on the court, with veteran judges Arthur Hunter and Keva Landrum stepping down to run for district attorney, and longtime jurist Paul Bonin putting in for retirement rather than face rivals of his own. So yeah. I don't know. Let's see. It looks like a quote from him, if I'm not mistaken. It was, I was quite surprised. Here I am. I don't hear any complaints about myself. Well, there were complaints published about you online, so are you sure? I don't keep people waiting. I start my court properly. Obviously, I'm prepared, Zibilich said. I have not ever heard anybody say I'm not fair. I don't know either side. Okay. So, if you were being investigated by the NAACP, unless they were not conducting their investigation in a manner in which addressed Franz Zibilich, that would be surprising. But, 5 to 10 years later, things like this happened, and then you're claiming you were never aware of it. How were you not aware of this? I wouldn't believe that. I believe you don't have a team that's properly advising you if that really is your claim, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Because what type of judge doesn't have a PR team or something monitoring this for you? Do you not have any sort of campaign team? Am I rude for saying that? I mean, and I'm not even bitter about what happened with this judge. I'm bitter about Leon Cannizzaro, fuck that guy, but I'm not bitter at all about Judge Franz Zibilich with my case. With my case, I think that was more of me being a peg in the system than anything being directly tied to his intention, if that makes sense. But with Leon Cannizzaro, he intentionally fucked with me. He can suck my fucking dick. He's a piece of shit, in my opinion. But and that's for educational purposes only. But yeah, fucking with Franz Zibilich, though, I think I was just a casualty of a fucked up justice system, and he was just so happened to be doing his job in that proceeding. If that makes sense. I don't know. But also, I think that's where I think that's where I give him grace, where I don't feel bitter, because I believe he was overworked as well. Because I know how the legal system is, and it overworks you. But also, I still do believe that in my case, I did not have a voice, and I don't believe that I was given fair, I don't believe that was an impartial situation. I don't believe it was fair to me. I think it was very one-sided and leaning towards the other party. But yeah. Because I didn't even get a chance to say my side of what happened ever during the court proceeding. I got to tell my district attorney at one point, but I never got to say it in court. My side of the story, I don't believe, was ever officially put on record, and I think that bothers me. It's because I didn't matter at all. The only thing that mattered was what, and I guess maybe it's normal, in the judicial system, I'm not supposed to say my side at all, but I wish I got to. It just made me feel like I didn't fucking matter. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I also don't know if that was the judge's fault, if that was my attorney's fault, or who's, that was just, the way it is. If it, I don't know. But yeah. But my point is that those experiences shaped how I move in law and how I got into the legal industry. Having those backgrounds. And then, so between my personal injury case, between my past legal conflicts, and then between my sexual assault case, and what had happened there, and I'm gonna do a whole different video on that one day. It's like I've started working on it and preparing how I plan on doing it and approaching it, and I've started looking at what I need to compile in order to do it, but because of what I need to put together to show to you is so triggering for me, it's hard for me to actually execute on it yet. But I am currently in the planning phases of what that video is going to be, if that makes sense. So yeah. But I don't know when it's gonna get done. You know, it's just gonna happen when it happens. I'm not gonna rush it with my mental health. But that is coming. So that also shaped how I moved in the legal field as well. And at the last law office that I worked at, I was really going into that job like I really wanted to be there. When I first started, I was genuinely excited to be there. I was skeptical about what the outcome would be because I already knew I wasn't their first choice. And they say, you know, you're not someone's first choice, just don't even go with them if they hit you up because of these reasons. But I had figured, let me not project other people's situations onto mine. Let me just figure it out and give it a whirl. I said, the captioner did not get that right, but I said give it a whirl, W-H-I-R-L. So, yeah, but I had different expectations for what that was going to be. I was looking for more of something long-term sustainable, but that is a place where, in my opinion, they don't really value long-term sustainability. It's more about short-term profits, and they value short-term profits over their long-term sustainability, in my opinion. Yeah. But I went into that thinking that if they were the way that they promoted themselves to be, it would be in value alignment with who I am. Because a lot of people do not see me as traditional because of my beliefs, but I am very traditional because of my beliefs. You know, like my dad is Indigenous, and so for me, I'm very tradish. Like family is important to me, community is important to me, farming is important to me, and returning to my roots is important to me, and community services too. And so I went into that situation with my own values, wanting to execute in that way. But I did not feel that there was value alignment in that organization. They were not there to do the same. They were only there to turn and burn, in my opinion. And so, I don't know, I guess it's a good thing that I didn't last long there, because why would you want to be somewhere that's not meant for you, right? But on another level, I just wish it was a different situation. But yeah. But that situation, like, how I don't know. Like, I'm still, in a way, like, in my own legal case right now with the personal injury situation. But when I was there, they also wanted me to target truckers. And I was so excited for that because I come from 3 generations of truckers. My dad's Okay, so my dad's grandfather on his mother's side, named Horace Mosley, he owned he owned 18-wheelers. He owned his own trucking and logging company, which theoretically I'm against mass deforestation and the pulpwood logging industry. But on another level, my people have always cut down trees and made use of that, and they did it in a sustainable way. But yeah, so that company was my grandmother's father's. and he sold it to my dad's father when he got married to my grandmother after they got married. So my dad's grandfather and my dad's dad, they were both truckers. And then my dad's a trucker. Half of his siblings are truckers. I come from a lot of people in the trucking industry. And so with one of their scenarios, they were talking to me about, targeting people who were in trucking, targeting people who have CDOs. And so I go talk to my indigenous relatives. I go talk to people of other nations. And I talk to my family. I was literally like, that night I went home, like, let me talk to these truckers and, get their ideas on targeting to them. And they were the ones telling me that if you're you know what, I'm not going to say it. They gave me an amazing strategy about, you know what, fuck it, I am going to say it. They were basically telling me, if you're an attorney in personal injury looking to target people with CDLs, you should target wreckers and target people looking for a towing truck or a wrecker specifically for 18-wheelers and heavier industrial vehicles, because if somebody needs a wrecker, and they needed a lawyer too. And so they may not default to looking for a lawyer, but in the moment, they're definitely going to be looking for a wrecker. And so if you can show up for those search results as well, that will help you then, target them more efficiently in the moment that they may need you. And so, yeah, like, I don't know. I've always had like this passion, for understanding the law, because I feel like everybody's impacted by it, but for me, it's always impacted every aspect of my life. And I talked a lot about my influence with specific legal events, but also being deaf. I never had access anywhere in society. No one ever listened to me. I would tell people I couldn't hear them. They would tell me I wasn't doing enough to pay attention, or that I was stupid. They would make fun of the way I speak. I still have speech impediments. I'm sure you noticed my list, at least. I have a stutter, and I have other speech impediments related to speech disfluency, language disfluency, and language deprivation. And it's, because of my speech therapy and my vocal training with singing, it isn't as bad as other deaf people. I don't even like using that. That might be ableist language of me that I'm internalizing. I'm sorry, guys, but I think you know what I mean. But yeah, so I have like a more articulate voice that is more hearing focused than a lot of deaf people, because of my years and years and years in speech therapy and vocal training. But I still do have a deaf accent. I still do have speech impediments. And I've never had access in society. I've never been able to hear. The hearing aids that exist today for my deafness, they did not exist until the mid-2010s. Back in the 90s, yeah, the hearing aids period existed, but not the hearing aids for my type of deafness. Hearing aids aren't one size fit all. And not all hearing aids work for everybody. Not all cochlear implants work for everybody. So a lot of people, they'll discount you for being deaf if you don't have hearing aids or cochlear implants. But not every deaf people wants to wear that shit. Most deaf cannot afford that shit. That shit is expensive. Yeah, that's an obvious sign someone is deaf, but it does not, just because you don't have those tools doesn't mean you are or not, doesn't mean you're not deaf. You know what I mean? A lot of deaf people can't even use that shit. Most deaf people are not raised with sign language because of the sign language ban, because of eradication. And so also a lot of people, if you can speak, they'll claim you're not deaf, but most deaf people speak. That's part of our genocide as well. And when it comes to giving me access, a lot of people think that it's weird, right? I get one or two different arguments used on me. Some people, they claim that I'm not deaf because I can speak. And so or you know what I mean, and or they'll be like, you can function, so you're not deaf, as if like what? And then some people they're like, oh, well, if you're deaf, that means you shouldn't be in the music industry because you're too stupid to. That's what people have told me before. Um, and they don't like, the hearing world does not give you the benefit of the doubt. Like, our colonial society, when you process information differently than them, they don't give you space to process it in your own way. They want you to regurgitate it like them, and if you can't in the moment, then they treat you as if you're less than, in my understanding of society. And I don't understand that. But all of these events and all of these issues impacting me, it's kind of just got me processing on self-care, how self-advocacy is a form of self-care, and how a lot of people get into self-destructive patterns whenever we are not able to take care of ourselves properly. I think it's our mind's way of like, if you are, because like, when you spend a certain amount of time trying to get help within the confines of social complicitness, and the within all of that criteria, doing it in a social acceptable way and not rocking the boat and not disturbing the peace, um, you know like, you kind of have to kind of get to a point where you battle between, at what point do you disturb the peace, what point does the peace need to be disturbed, and when fucked up shit is happening, there's only so long you can keep the peace before it shatters, because it's not actual peace, it's a cover up, and I think that's another thing. A lot of times people confuse running away from accountability with keeping the peace. Not being accountable isn't the same thing as keeping the peace. And sometimes when people are in a self-destructive mindset, I feel it's because when they were trying to do things in a socially acceptable way to protect themselves, they were still put into danger. And so that's then where their mind goes for their self-protection. What could be perceived as self-destruction may be their self-protection, where they are pushing people away because that is how they get through in that moment, and whether it's good or bad. But yeah, I've been rambling a lot, so I appreciate you joining me. I don't know if like this is like a weird ass, like long ass ramble, but basically, it's just kind of my processing journey, like with social issues, with human rights issues, just kind of reflecting on what is it about the legal industry that keeps me so connected to trying to understand it more, to covering these issues. And I think it ties down to conflict resolution, it ties down to history of colonialism, power dynamics, and why people do the things they do, But yeah. Alrighty, I'm gonna wrap this bitch up. It's been long enough. Sorry about that. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me today. I hope everything works out for everybody and all that good shit. And yeah, bye. Thanks for watching. Join the loyalty program at noladeafchild.com/loyalty and check in during live streams to get points for rewards.